Hello everyone, artist Charles Wolf here, back again for another painting video. Well, today I have a 12 by 12 inch canvas, a nice square canvas. I recently purchased a package of these and I'm really enjoying painting on them. They are a wonderful size, especially if you're painting from a photograph. I have quite the palette today. You can see I have a number of colors out there. Going from left to right, I have some cadmium yellow medium, titanium white, red oxide, raw umber, ultramarine blue, some more titanium white, and Mars black. I'm going to start with my favorite bright brush, nice straight edge bristles on that brush. I'm going to mix together a nice gray mixture with a touch of the black, the white, the blue, and as I'm going along I'm going to introduce more white and a bit of the umber. This painting is painted from a photograph that I took fairly recently here in beautiful Raleigh, North Carolina. I was going out one evening to a restaurant to get some dinner and pick it up and take it back home. When I was in the parking lot, I looked up and there was these huge storm clouds blowing in. The sun was just setting. Of course, the light was coming across and just hitting these magnificent billowing clouds that were rolling above me. I grabbed my phone out and took a couple photos of the amazing golden hues and umbery tones that was illuminating the parts of the clouds. And as you know, I love to paint sunsets, particularly I love to paint clouds, so I was just mesmerized by the sight of these amazing and wonderful scene that was unfolding before me. So when I got home, I went on my Instagram, uploaded a few photos. You can follow me there at Impulsive Artistry. So after I uploaded a few, I picked one that I really liked and I thought, hey, I want to paint this. So today I'm going to be doing that. I'm going to be using a lot of little brush strokes. I have a very active brushwork style. I want the brush strokes to be very visible and present in this painting. I'm not trying to hide and make everything really smooth. I want it to look like a painting and I want it to be rather impressionistic. So we're going to have lots of little brush strokes, quick horizontal and diagonal motions with my bristles. You can see I'm creating a gradation here. I'm working that white up a little higher and I'm going to have it become lighter and lighter as I get closer to the horizon line, which is right near the bottom of this canvas. Grabbing a little more white and working that in. And as we go along, I'm going to introduce more of the raw umber here and bring in some warmth to this painting. Here it is now, some nice raw umber. You can see that I've marked out a large section of white, kind of cutting in with the blue on the top left there, and that's where one of the clouds sort of juts over into the middle of the canvas. Lots of umber, and we're going to blend that back up into the blue and into the white, and the umber is a really nice natural color, kind of earthy tone, and when combined with the other colors, it creates a nice warmth for this painting. As I work down on this left-hand side of the canvas, I'm going to continue to add white to my mix. This is a blue and white mixture within my dirty brush, of course, and I'm going to blend that up into the level above, the layer above, and just work down in sections. Lots of very active brushwork here. If you're painting along with me, do be aware this is a fairly long video. I have to go through a lot of steps, and I worked through this painting at a good tempo, good speed, but not so quickly. I wanted to make sure that it was looking fairly accurate to the photograph. And whenever I work from a photograph, I find it does take me a little longer to finish each of the pieces. I tend to get a little more detailed when I have something to work off of, rather than just making something up from my head. Touch more of the light blue here, blue and white mixture, a little more umber, and you can see how much lighter the bottom is than the top. Okay, back to my umber and gray mixture. A little darker because we're higher up. A little more white as we work it down. As you're painting along, don't forget to paint the edges of your canvas. In this painting, I actually went back after I finished the whole piece and painted my edges at the end. It's actually easier if you do it as you're going along, so don't mind what I'm doing. Paint your edges as you go along. It'll be a lot easier, and the color matching will be so much easier to do. I'm not going to include me painting the edges of the canvas in this painting video, but just know at the end I do go back after I turn the camera off and fix those. More white here. Lots of white at the bottom here. This is where the sun is sort of shimmering back here. It's kind of fun painting a painting that has a nice gray scale to it. I don't paint a lot of paintings that are mostly gray, and it was an interesting challenge to create a dynamic piece with mostly cool gray tones. And a little umber and warmth for contrast. A little darker blue-white mix here. Blue-gray mix here. And this is going to be behind some of the foreground trees that we're going to put in that are silhouetted by the shimmering background. Okay, now to get started on these clouds, now that we have the background sky in, we're going to jump right into the umber. Lots of the umber and the white. And we'll just toss this in. This is the very first step of several. This is acrylic paint that I'm using today, and it's best to work in layers. So the first step is to get some of the warmth of these umbers down. I'm also taking the opportunity to block out some of the shadow sections of these clouds right now. More of the umber. Still using my bright brush. Now that I have the basic shapes blocked in for these clouds, we're going to come back in with some blue-white mix in my dirty brush and start to blend some of this gray, darker tones into this umber. Building up texture, building up layers, adjusting the colors with this darker mixture. Touch more of the Mars Black, the very littlest touch there, some more of the blue, some more of the umber, and back into the white. Gonna make a darker gray mixture again. That's pretty dark, maybe a little lighter than that. Like I said, working in layers and making adjustments as we go. The bottom of this is a little darker. The umber's there, but it's underneath the gray. Or, more correctly, maybe it's shimmering on top of it. But the two are commingling, and that's the point. Lots of umber here. A little more Mars Black. Again, through editing, I've cut out some of the pauses that I have here where I check my phone, I look at the photograph, I make adjustments, I stand back from the painting. All of that's been cut out. So what you're seeing is the actual painting itself when the brush is touching the canvas. But there are pauses throughout. This took a little over an hour and a half to paint in total. I've cut it down to only 40 minutes of footage. Do be aware that there are pauses and there are breaks and there's other things going on while I'm painting here. Okay, into the red oxide, a little bit of the blue, touch of the umber, a little bit of the white there as well. Nice soft purple, very light lavender. Going to bring this lavender down here at the bottom right corner. Just a hint of it. In fact, later on this may get covered up by another layer, but having it be part of that section is what I'm seeing on my photograph, and so I'm trying to mirror that as best as I can. Here is the blue-white mix with a clean brush. Blending that out, making the transition smoother. A little more white here. Okay, now I have some more white. I clean my brush off. It's going to blend with the colors that are already there a little bit before they dry, but we're going to bring in this lighter white area through here. A little more white, just blending up into the sky again. Nice halo effect, kind of an aura, a glow to these clouds. Which is why I think I was so mesmerized by the sight. Lovely, lovely light hitting those clouds and illuminating the sky the other night. And we're going to blend down here. Okay, clean brush. Very important that this is clean. Let's go right up to the top right here, right up against the sky, which should be pretty dry at this point, and we're going to bring in pure white right along the border. It's kind of hard to see, but as I bring in other colors it will become more apparent. I am filling in that whole section with pure white. I want it straight from the tube, and I want it to be very, very bold and bright. Here's some shadow colors and some nice, very light gray. Don't overdo the shadow color. Maybe a little bit of the umber with the white mixture on my brush. Golden hues, some warm umbery hues. Mostly it's white along that edge, and I want to keep that edge very, very clean, so don't get back into your clean white with the other colors. Try to avoid that front left edge of the clouds. We want that to be pure white. Very important. More umber here. Back to the white. And we are going to alternate the two. Blending together the cadmium yellow medium, a little bit of the umber, and of course the white. Normally, with using so much white, I would be concerned with oversaturation, but that is accurate to the photo, and we're going to contrast that sharply with the silhouetted very, very dark trees in the foreground. So I think that even though there's a great deal of white there, there's enough umber and enough of the gray pulling through and pushing through that it's fine, and the white is not going to overpower the rest of the painting. It's easy for these things to start looking too washed out, but with the contrast of the foreground trees that we put in at the end, the painting will read correctly and will have a nice glow to it. If I was painting a more normative landscape, then yes, I would be more conscious of the amount of white that I was using, but because this is a sunset sky painting with sort of a grayscale in mind, I think it's going to be just fine. A little more cadmium yellow and the white, just the two of those mixed together, get a nice golden yellow color, kind of a soft pastel color. Pastel yellow. And we're going to start to define some of these clouds through here. Touch of the red. Nope, more white instead. A little bit of the red, a little bit of the purple. A little more white. And more highlights on these clouds. For these clouds, I'm just tapping small circular motions with the corner of my brush. Okay, off to a good start. At this point, the main central clouds on the right hand side, the big column of clouds, the contrast is a bit too much between the shadow colors and the highlight, so we're going to blend this together in just a moment with some white, and we're going to scumble over all of the darker areas with just a little bit of white on our brush using almost a dry brush technique, and we're just going to blend this all together. A little more smoothing. These are clouds after all, so they need to be lighter. And this is a technique, standard technique with acrylic painting. Put in your darker sections a little darker, and then if you need to, you can come back over with some highlights and lighten them up, especially with the white here. If you keep the white to a minimum, not too much on your brush, just a little bit, it will blend just fine, and some of the darker color will still show through. I'm using just the very littlest amount of white on here, and again I'm just scumbling over it very lightly with my brush. We need the darker color to be there. It is there in the photograph, and so we need it to be there, but when you're working through this, we don't need it to be quite so sharp of a contrast. A little more of the yellow. Bring that along here at the top. I'm going to switch to my flat wash brush, clean flat wash brush. Also has a nice flat edge top of it, kind of like the bright brush, but with more of a moppy feel to it. The bristles are a little looser. We're going to bring some highlights here, like so, pure white. You can see how they really glow, these clouds. Okay, let's mix up a batch of the red, yellow, umber, and a little bit of the white. We're going to bring that together with my bright brush again. Get a nice warm, pale orange glow. Touch of the umber there, make it a little more earthy. Bring this in as a very light shadow over here on the right, and bringing that down above the gray and down here as well. Lots of umber light shadows on these clouds. Clean the brush off and then back into the blue-white mix. A little bit of the umber there. More white. A touch of the blue in just a few areas over here. As shadow colors. Okay, back to my flat wash brush. More of the white. Let's bring that back in. Dabbing the paint on with my brush. Very brief, short strokes. And again, we're just playing that white all along the edge here. A little more white up here. A little cloud jutting out there. more of the white. You can tell that the really, really brightest part is right on that forward edge of these clouds. Now that I have these white highlights in for the most part, let's go back to the blue-white mix, lots of white, and we're going to bring in, over top of this darker section, some lighter highlights. And these highlights are going to just gently transition from the more warm umber tones into this darker shadow here. These are dark, stormy rain clouds after all. Back into my umber. Taking my clean flat wash brush back into the white, we're going to bring up some more of these highlights again. Just making small adjustments, slowly but surely. We're going to get there. I think the end result is well worth the meticulous effort. I usually advocate for not sticking in one area for too long, and I think I'm reaching the outer edge of that advice. Having a photograph to work off of does mean that sometimes you have to go over a section multiple times to get it to look accurate, to be fair. But I think it's still a good rule of thumb. If you can keep things moving overall, you're going to get a better result in the end. A little more of the lighter mixture here. Again, we want to make that transition to be a little smoother. And here I'm going to start to scumble over this shadow down below as well. Once again, just softening the transition between the brightest highlights and the darker hue. A little more white on my brush. Sharp contrast there. Blending that white over. Let's mix up some red oxide, the white, and the yellow umber together. Back into that mixture. Reddish orange hues, a little more white, some pure white here with my clean brush, right back to some highlights. We'll bring in some of the white and that mixture that down here as well for some variation. It wouldn't look as interesting if you didn't have the dark underneath first. You can't see the light without the dark, so you need those darker colors as contrast so that when you do the lighter layer on top, it shows through. Very important step. I'm going to play around with some blue-gray mix here on this next part. You can just skip this next step. I end up undoing this part. I don't like the way it ended up looking, so I'm just going to take all these little lines out. It wasn't looking quite right. It was not quite the right shade, so I just decided to take it out instead of incorporating it. This is a great moment to point out that if you ever make a mistake, it's very easy to undo with paint. Just take some of the white and we'll just blend it out. A little more of the blue there, and we can just go right over these lines that we don't like, and it's like they never happened in the first place. They just blend right out. Especially if you do it right away, they'll still be kind of wet and it'll be just fine. We'll just blend that over and that'll be better. Mixing together some of the cadmium yellow medium and the white. Starting to bring in some highlights on these lower clouds as well. We're going to go back to the red, yellow, umber, white mixture here. And just increase the presence of those colors at the very bottom as well. Again, bringing up these highlights. We can use them up here to transition. And back over here as well. And we're going to play this lighter orange, this lighter mixture into the sky on the far left here. Very lightly, not a lot of paint on my brush, just blending it up into the white. Give it a nice sheen. Back to my white. A little bit of blue there as well. Gonna cover up that darker line. Right back into my umber gray mixture, a little bit of the white. And now we're going to do some more of the dry brushing across the bottom section through here. And blend that together a little more. It's going to be brightest at the bottom, of course, so we need to reflect that in the coloration. A little more umber, a little more of the blue. Some of the white. I think we'll just go ahead and fill in this bottom right hand side as well, all the way to the bottom. Most of that's going to be covered up anyway by the trees, so we don't need it to be as detailed. Okay, back to my warm mixture. Bring that in. Got a little bit too cold in this corner. Need to lighten that up a little bit. Add some more warmth back in. A little more of the red, the yellow, the umber, and the white. Just quickly toss in some more clouds. Quick swirling motions using the corner of my flat wash brush. Once more, take my clean, flat wash brush, a little bit of the white, and we're just going to play in a few more highlights in just a few spots here. A few more small details. And then we're about ready to call this painting complete. Of course, we have to put in the foreground trees, and then we'll be basically done. A few more light highlights just in a few spots here. Okay, bravery test. Take your Mars Black with a clean flat wash brush. And you can see that I'm just tapping it straight down, getting the paint evenly distributed along the bristles. I'm going to tap the bristles directly onto the canvas, just pressing that paint right into the canvas. Mars Black's a very dark color, and because the trees are in the foreground, they're going to be quite dark. You could do this maybe more of a gray tone. You also could do this with an umber, or maybe a light blue even, if you wanted something a little more atmospheric. But I'm going to go with what it looks like on my photograph, which is very dark, almost black color. And I'm just going to go all the way black. Why not? Going for high contrast here. Smash those bristles into the canvas. Tapping is all that I'm doing. Notice that the bristles are perpendicular to the canvas, and I'm just pressing them straight in. Make an adjustment here so I can get the bottom edge. Let's put in a few trees over on the right hand side as well. The biggest one will be on the left, and then we'll have some slightly smaller ones on the right. Same process, just tapping in the trees with my flat wash brush. You can see they get a little smaller and in the distance. The one on the left is closer to us, so we see more of the leaves. and just by tapping, they automatically appear. All the little bristles and all the little leaves, they just happen. Grabbing my liner brush, we can do a few small, distant little trunks here. Put a few more very faint, distant ones back there, using just the very, very tip of that liner brush. Very small marks. Getting smaller. Over on the right. Not quite happy with how this one came out, so we'll just change it into a pine tree. Pretty easy to do that. Just create a pine tree shape. Better. A little more black in a few areas, especially on this front left-hand tree. And I think we're about ready to call this painting finished. Thanks so much for watching.